2, Ken states that the people in general have stated that the Articles of Confederation are null and void and do not exist, and we are going by the Constitution. He states that such claim misses the mark. The Articles of Confederation in perpetual union. Perpetual means never ending, cannot be superseded. In the book, The Con in Constitution, it explains that. 2 things happened following the Declaration of Independence in 1777. 1, a flag was adopted. 2, Articles of Confederation began to be drafted. It was not until 1781 when the Articles were fully and unanimously accepted. Any addition or amendment also had to be unanimous. Now, please remember, when we go on to the second part of tonight's show, what I just shared with you in regard to the Articles of Confederation. On another extremely interesting note coming out of California, I received a call last week from a very upset California individual sharing with me some information which might shock some, but doesn't me in the least, because I know Mr. Cousins was the person editing Nathan Peachy's work all those many months ago when I began to expose the deliberate corporatized language being used in them. It seems there's a heated argument going on between one honorable elected official and all the others who, it has come to light, are all employees of a company owned by Mr. Cousins. These are all the elected officials in California except 1 or 2, possibly. They all work for a company owned by the one who has been elected as governor. And they've had to sign a non-disclosure of sorts, swearing to keep that fact secret. This honorable man has been threatened if he exposes this neat little corporate government they have structured in that great state. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Part 2 of that same argument concerns the fact that in the recent so-called election, in which Mr. Cousins claims to have been elected governor, the votes from Riverside County were not counted, among other egregious actions, such as the whole counting of the votes procedure. The objections to the actions by the Attorney General were met with the usual corporate-style RuSA attack on the honest, and I have had the PDF containing the documents along with the other files from this show, again, under the heading RuSA Exposure Part 6. I'm having those put up. When reading this PDF, pay close attention to the letter on page 6 from Ken Cousins in paragraph 6, where he addresses the uncounted votes in Riverside County. I quote Mr. Cousins here. I would dare say that not one of the people whose votes were not counted has done very much, if anything, to build this republic. That is not to say I'm callous to the fact that these problems arose. I take it as a priority issue to make sure this doesn't happen again. But you see, that's not the purpose of your letter. Had it been written as a neutral proposition to suggest remedies and corrections, your concern about the fact that votes were not counted would have been well taken. But this was not the theme of your letter, and that is what is at issue here. Well, it would seem that in California, Mr. Cousins gets to choose who's worthy to vote and who is not. And if a letter sent in objection is not specifically and singularly aimed at deliberately uncounted votes, he doesn't have to attend to the matter or fix it. I wonder how the good folks in Riverside County feel about that. So that's what I have to share tonight on the RuSA front. Before we go into the second half, and we start in on clarification, I have some words to say on that. I'd like to see if Deatra and Sue have any input on what I've already shared.
Oh, I think you've done an awesome job. I've had questions being asked in chat and in Skype, but most of them I think you've addressed, and I have told people, we've had a couple of callers also, and have told them that those are questions they could call back and ask on a different show. I don't think we're going to take any questions at all this evening unless there's time at the end.
Okay.
And there will not be any questions pertaining to What about the arrests and yada, yada, yada? That will be covered.
I'm going to clarify. Yeah, we're going to clarify some of those issues.
Yes. So, yeah, go ahead, Teri.
And the documents and recordings and links that I have discussed thus far, they will all be available under that RuSA Exposed page on the website under the heading RuSA Exposed Part 6. You'll find all that stuff there later. Like I said, our webmaster is a minister. This is Mother's Day as well. He has a large family. I'm sure that they are visiting both his mother and his wife's family today as well, and he is not available. So I may not be able to get him to get these documents and recordings up until morning, but I'm sure he will do it at his as soon as he can when he gets home.
Right. Exactly. Sue, did you have anything you wanted to add on this?
No, I think so far Teri said it all. What needed to be said as far as that's concerned. I think it's everybody needs to do their research and use their due diligence before they get their money involved in something that they're told is a good deal.
Yeah, and especially people out there, please take great care before you engage in anything like an EFT or other administrative process. These things have become the federal government and DHS's favorite entrapment. Please be careful before you do anything like that. Do your homework. And you know, a good rule, I don't care what it is. It's just like on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights when we're helping people understand how to turn the table on debt collectors. If somebody wants to help you learn and share information and education with you having to do with any process in the law or in the courts, if they cannot show you checks, even redacted ones, because a lot of times you got to sign a non-disclosure with some of these companies when they settle with you. If they cannot prove to you on paper with a picture and a copy of a check that they were successful at doing that, then do not believe it. If they're really for real and they can really help you and really teach you, then they can prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt in hard copy black and white that they've been successful. Otherwise, run. The other red flag is people charging you money to share information with you. Belonging to a website where you have to pay a nominal fee for the services you get is one thing. Paying for a seminar seat just to be given a bunch of information that you really shouldn't be doing in the first place without any black and white proof that it's real and that these people have been successful at it. Now that's something altogether different, and we call those people patriots for profit. And it's their profit, not yours, that they're concerned with. So please be careful. Okay. Now I guess we need to go on to clarification. So
yes,
I'm going to...
Teri, and I would like to really let you go ahead because and do that because obviously last week I really offended a lot of people with my frustrations to do with answering these emails and everything, and it's just it's very frustrating. I mean, let me put it this way: it's at the point where I'll read an email and I'll verbally out loud say something very, very negative and nasty, but of course, you know, I try to tone it down and when I respond. But it's pretty hectic over here. A lot of disinformation, a lot of dependency, and a lot of people putting one man on a pedestal that he is the savior of the world. Terry, Teri. Have fun.
Okay. Now
Have fun. You know my frustrations. Have fun, honey.
I've got people Skyping me with more RuSA information. I'll have to revisit that if we have time at the end. And thank you, people, for staying on top of things and attempting to email me. Now, I would like to explain, usually when I have this much information to share, I type it all up before the show so that I can just read from a script so that I don't forget and start backtracking and getting things out of chronological order. And when I do that, I can't be reading Skypes at the same time, answering the other phone line, and so on and so forth, so forgive me for that. Getting on to clarification. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a very important part of tonight's show. There's a ton of misunderstanding out there in regard to announcements and interviews given by Drake. In his initial interview with David Wilcock, Drake mentioned a process which has been done by the states to restore civil authority and constitutional allegiance and law. The process he was talking about has nothing to do with his connections and sources. Even though the process does have to do with the same plan Drake talks about, the facilitators of that process which has taken place have never been in direct contact with Drake. Why do I know that? Because there were and are only two people whom the folks who requested the project communicated with. I am one of those people. The other I will not name in public, as there is still a serious level of threat and danger to individuals involved in this effort, and I will do nothing to increase that on any person. It is my right to make the decision to identify myself and mine alone. For the same reason, I will not answer questions regarding the facilitators of the project or the details about how it was done, other than what I will share with you this evening. Do not send questions to Freedom Reigns regarding this information, because you will not get an answer, not from Freedom Reigns nor from me. Many unrealistic expectations have arisen as a result of Drake's interviews and as a result of the project. I will attempt now to clarify some things and clear up a lot of the confusion. Now, this is by no means to cast aspersions upon Drake. We are close friends. We are not at cross purposes. However, his sources and connections are not the same as ours. And as I stated before, the process which took place did have to do with the same plan to restore this nation, but was not instigated by the same people. Now, first of all, as I have said above, the project involved paperwork completed and sent to an international office of private law for the purpose of putting the world on notice that America is a free nation, not a corporation, that her people are free and not corporate property, that America does not recognize the jurisdiction of any foreign entity, including but not limited to the corporate U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, IRS, NATO, or the United Nations, nor does her people welcome their presence on our soil. The paperwork restored this nation to the only time in history when the people were truly in power, under the Articles of Confederation. Now, remember earlier I told you to recall at this point what was pointed out on that document. Contrary to what we, the people, have been traditionally taught for nefarious purpose by those whose best interest is served by the deceit, the Constitution does not apply to the people, and it was never intended to. In fact, it is nothing more than a very limited rule book placed on the federal level of government in order to prevent them from usurping our God-given unalienable rights. By deliberately teaching and promoting false history, the controllers are now ready